Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton is here. Jacob, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. Devastating news to get at work, but I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. How are you?
Yeah, I'm processing it all, right? We'll get to it today. But yeah, I don't know. Before we get to all that, all right, man. Tigers are kicking butt. That's making me feel a little bit better. We got Parker Meadows up. Let's live in the happy zone of 8-0 right now. Then that'll cheer up our listeners that are bummed about Frank. I know it does nothing for the Lions what the Tigers are doing, but in our sports Detroit mood, that can be elevated, right?
It is the White Sox, but a win is a win.
Hey, after scoring one run over Saturday and Sunday, I'll take the 8 runs.
Yeah.
I don't care who we're playing.
Right.
One run and we went, 1-1. I will take it. So, all right, man. I want to thank all of our new followers. Jacob and I are just amazed at the numbers since we've, joined. We're on the POD podcast. So obviously we got a bunch of new followers, new listeners that we haven't had before. So thank you for jumping on. As always, thank you for everybody that's been listening to us, from the get-go or picked us up along the way somewhere. We do appreciate it. So just so everyone's clear, during the offseason, we're usually live on Monday nights at 9 p.m. You can catch us, on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. If you can't catch us live, you can watch us on Spotify or listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. If you're enjoying that and you haven't given us a rating, please do us a favor and give us a 5-star rating if you think we deserve it. If you don't think we deserve it, send us a DM. Tell us where can we improve. I'm not above that. I'd like to know, how we make this more enjoyable for you. Also, I encourage if you're listening on those platforms or you're on YouTube, subscribe, follow us, so you can get alerts when we go live or when a new episode's released. As Jacob already talked about, today we're going to talk about Frank Ragnow's surprising decision to retire. We're going to talk about OTAs from the actual practice to Dan Campbell and the various player meetings with the media. But we're going to start out with something a little different. For those of you that followed us from the beginning or kind of just like caught up with us at some point, Jacob and I worked together. Well, that is not happening anymore. I took a new position. I'm going to be working remotely, still with the same company, but Jacob will be in the store. I'm going to actually be working from home. And today marked the official start for the new remote position. And of course, huge news dropped. And I immediately wanted to talk to Jacob about it, but we weren't next to each other. So that was
So
strange.
I blame you.
Nah,
Big news drops, of course, when you're not there. So this is not happening right now.
Yeah.
And I'm too busy. I'm running around. I've got Twitter blowing up. I've got messages. And then I see it all at once. Of course, I look at your thing first. I'm like, oh my God, this can't be happening right now.
That sucks. I'm glad that.
But Jason's at home pretending to work. He's looking. He's watching. It's ironic. Your first full week in the Tigers, we have like all night games this week, so you can even watch baseball while you're working.
Yeah, that would be sweet, right? So I took this remote position. Everyone that's listening to this knows that Jacob and I value our family time. This allows me like 10 more hours a week to be with my family, which is awesome. However, I'm going to really miss talking sports with Jacob at work, but luckily we have this podcast, right, Jacob? We can get that out of our system. It'll be interesting how this goes because sometimes we wouldn't talk about the Lions too much at work just because we wanted to talk about it on the show. So I'm curious how this is going to affect that when we talk about other sports stuff. Certainly Tigers this time of year.
Right.
So I got a question for you, Jacob. At what point, since we've known each other, it's been probably close to about 3 years now that we worked together, right? At what point did you know that you and I connect on sports in more than a superficial way than, hey, I like the Tigers, we can superficially talk about it. At what point did you think this guy gets sports the way I get sports?
for a very long time, I worked with all women that did not appreciate sports at all. I got zero talking about sports. Anything that I tried to talk about, there's one of them that was kind of into basketball a little bit, so I could talk to her about it. Finally, several guys that have worked with us, I start trying to feel them out. A couple of them are casual fans and everything. I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I feel like it was pretty early on once we actually started talking to each other, because we worked in these COVID clinics giving vaccines and doing different things like this, and we weren't very close like that. But then once you started working in the store, obviously sports came up, and then it seemed like it was pretty quick where it was like, okay, this guy gets it. It wasn't like somebody that can't remember Matthew Stafford's name, or there's like just there's casual fans and there's people that are like fully into it. And I feel like it was pretty early on where I was like, okay, yeah, no, he gets it. We're having deeper conversations here.
Yeah, I started working with. I remember when I started in the summer, so football season hadn't started yet, and I know it was sometime during football season that we started talking. I remember I told you, I was like, you got to watch the Peyton Manning cast, because that was like the new thing at the time. I was like,
Yeah.
this is cool, and trying to get you in on that. And gradually, I mean, I knew that we could connect on sports, but it was more like, okay, you just, the more you could talk and open up, and you're like, okay, we could talk deeper than I could talk with someone that just casual, like you said, I generally know the Lions play on Sunday, kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Like that kind of line, and there's nothing wrong with those type of fans. I mean, that's fine, but it was,
there's levels to it.
Yeah, and I knew, I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't know that we were going to start a podcast and have fun in that kind of way. I could tell you, like you, I can't pinpoint the moment that I was like, okay, this guy gets it, but I can pinpoint the moment where I was super excited to tell you something sports related, and that's when my boys, when my oldest got throw out the first pitch at Tigers at Comerica Park. We just to quickly go through the story before we move to Frank's stuff. I walking around Comerica Park, and one of the attendants stopped my family and said, "Who here would like to throw out the first pitch?" And Preston was probably 11 at the time, I think, and so he looked at him, and my youngest Bradley thought Preston had a better shot making it from the mound. And so they picked him, and I was like, in my head, I was like, oh my God, Bradley's going to get left out. Like my other son's going to get left out. And then he said, I need someone else to hand in the lineup card. So Preston's getting ready to throw out the first pitch. Bradley gets brought into the dugout. And so I'm texting Jacob. I'm like, I'm on the field right now. This is amazing. First call I made was to my grandma to let her know this was going on, because she's a huge sports fan. My second was to you. I was like, Jacob, if his kids got to do this, it would flip out. So we were I was at the top step of the dugout. I'm looking in. Bradley is high-fiving all the players. Spencer Torkelson comes up, teaches them a dance. Jake Rogers gives them a fist bump, and then Jake Rogers comes up and gives me a fist bump at the top of the steps. Awesome. That was amazing. And, it was just neat just being all a part of that. And then as I'm walking, like after it all wraps up, Preston throws the first pitch out. I walk by. Riley Green was injured at the time, but he was at the bench, and he called us over, and he gave Bradley a fist bump, and he gave me a fist bump. So it was a cool experience for all I had. And, that was just the first moment that I was like, Jacob is really going to get jealous at this. So I got to really tell him right away. Now, I knew you would get it. I knew that you would understand what a cool moment this was.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can appreciate that, and also feel jealous for sure.
Yeah, no, it was not about that. I was just, I knew that you would get it, and you would be like, wanted to see the video as soon as I came into work and all that stuff. So it was very
right.
Cool.
I wanted the pictures right away.
Oh, man.
No.
Yeah, it was just a unique experience. So, all right, man.
You didn't comment on my new decor.
Okay, what do you got back there? Oh. All right, for the people listening on the podcast, there was a sign on the door for I'm a pharmacist, and it said "pharmacist on duty." Now that I'm no longer there, Jacob apparently has taken that from work and now has it behind behind it. He's going to probably shadow box it. Do you want my white
You
lab
didn't
coat?
see. I added to the bottom part. I added the important part.
Yeah, well, Jason Harwood sucks. Okay, well, I chose to ignore that. You could shadow box that with my white lab coat, though, and that would be pretty sweet,
right.
You know? Yeah, you could have my autograph because it's a terrible autograph. It looks
I had
like
to take your jersey from the rafters and get rid of it.
Burn it up. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
It's
All
hanging
right.
on the rafters right here on the desk. That's where it'll stay for a little bit.
Nice.
For probably a day. I'm sure one of the kids will destroy that tomorrow. It's just paper.
Yeah. That's hilarious. That is really funny. So what's not funny is Frank Ragnow retiring, right? I mean, that was a big blow. We're trying to, we're all processing it in a different way. Like not just you and I, but Lions fans everywhere, right? We're all processing this. So just some general stuff, before we get into like Jacob's initial thoughts, because everyone's thought about the cap situation and all that. So I'm gonna just Jacob hasn't really had a chance to look into that as his kid's got baseball, so he went right from work to baseball. So
I've been busy all day.
Yeah. So Frank this year was going to count $14 million against the cap. He's going to count $15.9 million next year, but he only had $8.4 million in dead money. So that's all the Lions owed him left. So we could potentially save, I think the number is around $9 million in the cap this year, depending on how the Lions decide to do it. So they could take that, since this is going to be a post June 1st deduction, we could either take that dead cap hit all this year, which we have $40 million in cap space, so it's not going to hurt us to take it this year. Or the Lions could choose to split this up between this year and next year because it's a post June 1st. So however the Lions want to do that, it's kind of basically accounting. It's going to be the same amount whether they take it now or later. So I don't know what they're going to choose to do. My feeling is they're probably going to split it up just because there's no advantage to doing it either way, but they could take the dead cap hit this year. It doesn't really matter. So Jacob, I'm going to throw it to you. Your initial thoughts when you saw it, or where are you at right now with it?
It's tough. Obviously, he wasn't at OTAs, but the talk surrounding that is that maybe he was holding out for a new contract, which didn't make a lot of sense anyway. Just, he signed a new extension a couple of years ago. Maybe he was holding out for a contract. I think one of our listeners made a point, like, if he's holding out for a new contract, that means he feels good enough, to last for a few more years, which, obviously was not the case. He wasn't really holding out for another contract. It doesn't look like anyway. It just looks like he has been battling this probably for quite some time. We met Frank Ragnow at the draft. We got to do that little Caesars passing contest thing against Frank Ragnow and got to talk to him for just a few minutes. And, really, really cool, chill person. I mean, my kids are both kind of upset that he's not playing anymore. And, just very, very surprising. I mean, he's battling injuries and everything like that, but he's still playing at a really high level. And this is a big loss, one that we did not anticipate having to deal with, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. It plainly it sucks. I won't repeat the word that you said to me. It was a one-word response. It was 4 letters when I told you what had happened, and we don't say that in this podcast, but I sure feel like saying it.
I said it from the heart.
I said it for all Lions.
That's in the midst of everything going on at work, and that's what those 17 messages and everything going on. I'm like, that was just my first reaction. That sums it up.
Yeah, I am sad for the team. I'm sad for the city. Frank's just a good dude, like you said. You got to meet him at the draft. Just was a good person overall. The offensive line seems to be close as a unit, so I'm sure that they're hurting. Not only losing a great player, but they're losing a great friend. And so I think, from that aspect, there's going to be some acclimation point of coming together. People are online are losing their mind. Many things are, the window's closed now. Frank's a traitor, all this kind of stuff. So what is your response to people that call this a Barry Sanders situation where he just left them high and dry? Do you have any thoughts on that?
First, I just have to talk about the traitor thing. Like, Frank's a traitor. I mean, anyone that's close to the team knows, what type of person that Frank is. And I know that this had to be something that he was very difficult decision for him to make and something he was battling probably for a while now, right? This wasn't something that he just made on a whim. You know, as far as if it's a Barry Sanders situation, I mean, if you're looking at the angle of we lost a really, really good player way sooner than he needed to, then yes, you put Frank Ragnow right up with Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson. An all-pro player at the top of their game, somebody very important, somebody that would have been playing at an all-pro level the season that they left and they retired early. I absolutely feel that way. Now, as far as, Barry Sanders, I believe, was the day before training camp? I mean,
Yeah.
He dipped out way later than Frank Ragnow did. I mean, this was during OTA, so, or after OTAs, really. I don't have any sort of ill will or, people that may be like, oh, he should have did it before the draft or this or that or whatever. Like, I'm sure this is just something he thought about for a long time, and he finally was just like, I'm just not going to be able to do it anymore. I have to just let it go.
Yeah. My first thought is no one outside of, the team, his teammates, Brad Holmes, whoever would need to know higher ups, like Dan Campbell certainly knew this ahead of time. I'm thinking they knew that this is a real possibility from early on in the offseason, if not from after the last game. Frank might have, alluded to this. I think it affected the draft. I think it affected how Brad Holmes draft. I think it affected how OTAs and rookie minicamp went as far as like who they gave center snaps to.
Right.
Those are all signs that, looking back now, hindsight's 2020, that we all could have pointed to and be like, ooh, I don't know about Frank. We all thought they were just cross-training, and that could be it too. I mean, they do cross-train, so, that they might have done those things without Frank. But looking back on it now, you could see the writing was on the wall that something's going on. My feeling is that they kind of knew that Frank was leaning to retire, although they probably said, well, Frank, why don't you just take your time and we can wait on you. And then if you know the decision, then you can, when you're ready, just let us know and we'll make it. So there's no sense I'm sure Frank didn't want to be like, get it out that he was thinking of retiring. And then all of a sudden all his teammates are just getting asked about it. What's Frank thinking? Was Frank going to come back? I mean, they're going to get asked now that he's retired, but at least they're not putting him in a decision of having to speak for Frank about, is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back? So I do commend him on that, no one got wind of that. I mean, the whole report that came out was, and what was weird is they attributed the tweet that I saw attributed his contract situation to Dave Burkett, but I could not find anything that Dave Burkett flat out said that. So I don't know where that came from.
I just saw the rumors. I didn't see where it started.
Yeah.
But it is worth mentioning, too, that Dan Campbell said, in regards to Frank and Alex Anzalone, that he's been in contact with both of them. There's been open discussion with both of them. So, I mean, you're probably right. I mean, with the type of relationship that they have, I'm sure that Frank was open, like, trying to get healthy, but maybe I'm leaning towards retirement right now. And they probably were, take your time, take OTAs, do whatever,
Yep.
There had to be some sort of open discussion. There's no way that the Lions were just completely in the dark and blindsided by this.
Right. Trading up for Tate Ratledge makes more sense now, even though it was a few spots. If they knew that this was a possibility, they're like, we cannot let Tate not be on the board when we come up if they're thinking that he's the center of the future. And your guy that you liked in the draft, Miles Frazier, becomes more important now, way more important. Not necessarily maybe at the center position, but as just another top backup, because now we have another open spot in the line. And so that's going to lead into my next topic. I want to ask you, who's the starting center week 1 this year? If you had to guess right now, I mean, things could change between now and, week 1. So, but as of right now, where's your mind at?
I would say if you were betting on it right now, you would have to say Tate Ratledge, right? I mean, that seems like the easier one, to put him over there. And, they gave him center reps at OTAs, which, like you said, cross-training could mean nothing at all. But, I mean, it looks like that's probably who they want to slide in at starting center.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to go. I think it's Graham Glasgow week 1. They're going
Yeah.
to want some veterans there with Tate training there and getting as many reps as they can feel. Feel they can give him. Graham would know the calls already. This offense, I know it's a new OC, but I have a feeling, and plus, Graham's worked with these other offensive linemen more. So I have a feeling that he's just going to be more comfortable in that. So I don't think you're going to want to start with Tate Ratledge right away. But I wouldn't, if he comes out and balls out, the Lions will make that move. If they think they're going to put the best 5 out there, right? I mean, that's what the Lions do. The Lions, no one is given a job, and everyone has to earn a job. And if Tate comes out and they feel that he's the best, then I could see him doing that. I think right now your best 5, though, without any snaps in training camp, you know who your tackles are, right? I don't have to go over that.
Right.
But inside, I'm thinking, you might have Mahogany on left guard, Graham center, Tate right guard to start the year. Things could change, and maybe by the end of the year or an injury moves Tate over to center, and then he just takes off with that, that job. I think it's Tate's by next year. I think it's Tate Ratledge, by next
At center.
year. Yeah, at center.
Well, so if that's the goal, the long-term goal, what benefit would you have for putting Graham there right now as a placeholder when Tate could be learning and getting better?
Well, I mean, you got games to play. You got to win those games, and
right. But I mean, it's not like rookies have not started off at center before in the NFL and had success.
I know, but here's what I'm thinking. Brian Flores defense, Minnesota comes to town. Are you going to want Tate Ratledge in there making those calls, or do you want Graham Glasgow? Tate Ratledge week 12 is different than Tate Ratledge week 1.
Correct.
So,
I mean, yeah. I just think right now those middle 3, the guards in the center position, you pencil those in. You can write the other ones in pen. You can put a plaque up with the Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker on there. But there could be a weird shuffle going on with the guards and center situation. Mm-hmm. We'll get some more clarity in training camp, and there may be a battle in training camp. Or you're right. They may just say, you know what? This is ideally what we want to happen. We want Graham to play center, Mahogany on the left, Tate on the right. That's where we're starting, and just see how it plays out, see what happens. Graham struggled last year. I don't, you're right. He knows the calls and everything like that. Is he going to play up to that level? I don't know.
Yep. No, there's a long time between now and training camp, but that's just the way I feel right now. So let's look at silver linings. Okay, Jake and I, we're gonna go over to some possible benefits of this. Jacob and I, in no way are saying it's a good thing that Frank retired. Okay, but how I look at life and how I look at a lot of things, football or whatever, we can't make Frank unretire, right? So there's no sense of looking at the past. We have to move forward. So how can we make the best of this situation? I do that with my kids. You know what? This happens. It sucks, but we can't change the past. We have to move forward. So what are some possible benefits? Well, number one, we're getting, like we mentioned at the top of this segment, cap savings, right? We have players that we could, Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Alex Anzalone wants a new deal. Jameson Williams is, like we had kind of written him off a little bit, like we have money, okay, because Tate's going to come in here and say Tate is the starting center. You're going to save, he's going to be getting paid like roughly $2 million a season. So you're talking huge savings off the cap that can be put towards another player. So there is that. And not only was okay, let's just fast forward 2 years. Frank was still on the team. He's going to get paid because he's still an all-pro if he chooses to do that. That's another player that you have to pay, so therefore it's going to go towards the cap. Would have been well worth it, in my opinion. All-pro center. He was working on a Hall of Fame career. Don't think he, only 7 years in the league. I don't think he's going to quite hit, Hall of Fame status. But you pay that guy, and the fact that he plays with a broken throat, for God's sakes. So, he's the toughest guy. So anybody that's calling him a traitor, he's been through the worst and played through it. He is a team player. So, but you think about the cap savings, and we can use that money going forward. Do you have any other thoughts about?
I mean,
about
that's
that?
when you're talking about the silver linings, like let's look at the positive side. That's the only positive side that I think you can shake out of it is just where it leaves the cap situation, because we've already got these contracts hanging over our heads trying to re-sign all these guys. And now that's, one less difficult decision to make because it's already been made for us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think two things are good, are true at the same time. It sucks that Frank's retiring, but having more money to spend on the players that we want to keep, that's good. So, I'd rather, if Frank, Frank gave everything that he had. And when I think he's so truthful when he says, I thought I had more to give, but I realized that I don't. And I'd rather have a player that's all in and feels that he can give it than someone that's, half in. You're going to, you could make this offensive line a lot worse if you got Frank dealing with stuff and then, just his body isn't up to the task of being there.
Right. Constantly dealing with injuries, banged up here or there, the mental stuff that comes with that too. Yeah.
Yep. So in case I don't think they're going to go this route, but just in case you have thoughts like, do we need to go out and get any free agent centers? Got a few on the list that are available. David Andrews, he was from the New England Patriots. He's probably he had $6 million average annual salary, but he's also almost 33 years old. You got Daniel Brunskill. He was a center for the Titans. Nick Harris, center for Cleveland. Dan Feeney for Minnesota. Those are your top four. David Andrews was making $6 million. Everybody else was below $3 million a year annual average salary. So that they're not top of the line centers. So I think that we're probably better outside of an injury happening, covering them with covering Frank's position with our own players rather than going outside the organization.
Yes.
Do you feel
no?
the same way?
There's no. I mean, you can't even a couple $1 million. There's no need to throw a couple $1 million and try to bring somebody in here like that.
Yep. All right, man. Let's. You have anything else on Frank or any other thoughts you want to talk about before we move on?
No, we can move on.
All right, let's move on. Before we do that, I don't know if you caught it, but Kerry Carpenter hit his third home run of the game while we were just talking about that.
I did not see that.
Earlier.
I saw the White Sox scored.
Yeah, whatever. But Kerry Carpenter hit his third home run of the game. All right, back to the Lions here. OTA. Well, Frank was one of those missing players, but there was a ton of other missing players, and some of it was expected, some of it's unexpected. But Dan Campbell talked about it, that basically he was giving the rookies a breather because they basically, were training for the combine and all that, and then they went into rookie minicamp. So he's just probably giving them a breather, mostly because the offseason is going to be so short for the Lions because, we're playing in the Hall of Fame game, and they're going to get those young guys are going to be playing in 4 preseason games, which is one more than everybody else in this league except for San Diego or Los Angeles.
San Diego.
I know.
My God.
Yeah, I know.
What's this guy?
Yeah, I know. I'm an old man.
Boomer.
There'll always be San Diego. So let's just
the
quickly...
Oakland Raiders. St. Louis Rams.
Yeah, St. Louis Rams. Nice. The Baltimore Colts.
I swear I was just going to say that one next. I was going Baltimore Colts. I was trying to think of an older one to rag on you.
I gotcha.
You would say that first.
That's funny. All right. And so injured or coming off an injury, these are ones that are definitely expected. So Lee McNeil, Malcolm Rodriguez, Tyreek Williams, still dealing with the hamstring issue, but also, Dan Campbell said he was giving the rookies off. Mekhi Wingo, Derek Barnes, Khalil Dorsey, Dave Montgomery, and Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell was kind of a surprise, but during his talk, he mentioned that he had off-season hip surgery. So those guys are all coming off some sort of off-season surgery or just injury, so we kind of expected that. The rest are just being precautious. Amon-Ra was not there. We don't really know what's going on with Amon-Ra. My bet is that he's recovering from something too that just is undisclosed at this point. but I don't think it's anything to worry about. Broderick Martin, Levi Onzarike, Josh Pascal, DJ Reader, Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, and Kenny Yeboah, Miles Adams, and then Siona Vaki were all out. And then the rookies, Miles Frazier and Isaac Tesla, those guys all missed. And then, Frank wasn't there, but we thought that was a contract issue at the time. But Alex is the only known contract issue at this current time. Alex, I think we might have talked about this with POD guys. Alex doesn't go to all these off-season programs mostly because he's so well versed in the defense. He just takes extra time to be with his family. I think I'm not overly worried about it. Does any of these other people that have missed, these players have missed, or does any of that concern you at all?
No, I don't put much value in OTAs as far as these guys need to be here and this is valuable time and this and that. I don't think. I mean, Amon-Ra, you don't have to worry about him being prepared or him staying in shape or whatever it may be. So, I don't really. Would it be cool if everybody was there, everybody participated, everybody was in the building? Of course it would. But I have no problem with these guys sitting out, resting, and not doing this stuff right now. It's just not necessary, especially with the injury history that we've had. I don't think there's anybody on that list where I'm like, wow, I really, Tesla, I really wanted to see him, live football and everything like that. So that was disappointing, but still at the same time, I understand. Yeah. It's not a thing. It's just OTAs.
Yeah.
Training camps where it matters.
Yeah. I wish they were there just from the standpoint that, we got a new OC, new DC, but just because they're not out there practicing, they're doing the meetings, they're getting ready for the installs. And
right.
It's luckily, I don't think the OC and the DC are changing. It's not like they're revamping this defense or offense. I think they're gonna put in wrinkles and they're gonna change. Even if Ben Johnson and AG were here, they'd be putting in new wrinkles. You can't just stay the same. Some of the verbiage may change especially with Johnny Morton. So, but they're going to get that in the meetings, and I'm going to trust Dan Campbell's approach on who to sit and he'll have these guys ready. I think what's going to help the Lions, like you said, it doesn't count till training camp. 2, teams are coming in for practice, which that's invaluable. They get so much work done when another team comes in, and we have the extra game. So the young guys are going to get an extra game with the Hall of Fame game. So you're worried about these rookies? Now they're going to get plenty of playing time, and actually probably I could argue more valuable playing time playing under the lights. Game doesn't count, but getting real competition from another team, that'll matter.
Those reps matter, right?
Yes, exactly.
I will say, Derek Barnes early on, I heard that he would be participating in OTAs, or that was the plan, is that he should be good by OTAs. So for him not to be there is still, hopefully there's no setback or anything. Obviously, they're not saying anything like that. They said he should still be 100% by training camp, but, it doesn't hold much weight, but it's still something. Hutch is out there. Hutch is wearing the leg sleeve, but he's still getting his work in or whatever. It would have been cool if Derek Barnes was out there too. But if you're not ready, no sense in pushing that during OTAs. The other guys, though, I mean, like Aleem McNeil, best case scenario, he comes back in between weeks 8 and 10. Malcolm Rodriguez, I saw they said his season debut prediction right now would be after the bye week, which is week 9. Makai Wingo, we knew he wasn't going to be in OTAs, but he's supposed to be ready by training camp. Dorsey, same thing. They said that he should be ready to go by training camp after having the broken leg. No surprises with any of these injuries. They were all things we knew about.
Yeah, I'm not worried about much on this list. So it is. Do you think that they wanted to keep Hutch out and then he just said no?
That's a very good possibility. They were like, why don't you just sit this one out? And he was like, fat chance, get me out there.
Yeah. I haven't played football since week 5 of the NFL season last year. You're not keeping me off this football field. And that's all he had to say about it. I'm sure if they'd have said, we want you to stay off, Hutch would have done it. But the fact that he's out there is really encouraging.
And we don't know to what level he was out there anyway. I mean, we've seen the pictures of him going out and everything. We knew he did some drills and stuff, but I mean, it might just be the same stuff that he was already doing anyway.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it right now. The OTA reports from the beat writer. So, Jeremy had, they said that Hutch looked good. There was a time where he slipped on it was, they said, a kind of scary situation. He slipped, but he got up and fought right through the play. So, I think he was out there doing. I think he was out there doing his thing. I don't know if I assume he's doing it 100%. Can Hutch do anything that's not 110%?
Right. I mean, they're not in pads. It's not the same. So
no context. So a couple of the guys that I follow, I wanted to read what their reports. So the beat writers got to be at the last practice. That was the only practice. They get to go to 1 week in these OTA sessions. They get to go to one practice a week. So this is the one. Justin Rogers reported that he wrote, in terms of Frank Ragnow's absence. At that time, we didn't know it was retirement, but we just knew he was going to not be there. The starting center went to Tate Ratledge. Christian McCogany was at left guard, and Graham Glasgow was getting most of the reps at right guard, occasionally rotating out with Awasika. Colby Sorsdale got reps at center, which I found very interesting. And they said that Rakestraw looked shaky. So he dropped an interception that was like basically right to him. And this is a cool one that Justin Rogers, Jack Fox is trying out a new punt that basically comes off the foot like a helicopter. And when it hits the ground, it bounces horizontally. So it bounces side to side, which seems like a pretty sweet kick for a coffin corner kick or something like that.
Right.
And they also
those are much harder to catch too.
Yes, and they said that the returners were having trouble judging where it was going to land. So that obviously it's just coming off the foot weird. So we'll see if that actually happens in the season.
Right.
But that's pretty cool.
That's cool, but that's hard to pull off, and you don't want to be trying something fancy with a punt game on the line, and then all of a sudden it's a shank.
A shank, yeah, just go right.
So yeah, this is the time to try stuff like that and see what you got.
Yep. The POD crew, Jeremy said that JMO was noticeably bigger. In the interview afterwards, JMO said he had gained 5 pounds, but they were noticing that he was just cutting on a dime, even like running full sprint and then stopping and able to come back. Which, if he starts adding that, how are you going to guard that? How are you going to guard that? Going to guy, you got to respect the speed, and then all of a sudden the guy stops at a dime, comes back a yard. The guy's going to be like 5 yards behind him, and then if they give him space, like if he turns around and JMO turns around, the guy's still, behind him, like on a timing route or whatever. Give JMO space, and he'll still take it to the house. I got excited when I heard that. And then the next thing that the POD guys noticed was that they said it was the loudest OTAs that they've ever been to, with the coaches shouting and just like the excitement of the players, which I can't wait for training camp. If the OTAs are this loud, wait till training camp.
Absolutely. Lots of new coaches in that building. They're trying to prove themselves the same way the players are too. So, competition level is always high.
Yep. Well, and the coaches being familiar, like a lot of them are familiar. David Shaw, Johnny Morton, Chard Choice with Shep. Those guys are best friends, and they're, straight. Like I said, they're proving their worth, but they're also comfortable in their own skin, and they're comfortable with the guys around them. And competition makes the best out of everybody. Coaches, players, whatever.
Right.
Podcasters, right?
Yeah, that'd be me and you.
Yeah.
I'd be yelling at you and letting you know.
Yeah, ever since you said you play competitive flag football, I've been outside training.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
I put on my boys' flag football gear, and I'm like, try to get me.
You'll hurt yourself.
I know, that's right.
I would bet money that Bradley could pull the flags off of you.
I would bet money that he would, and I bet money that I couldn't pull it off him. He is very talented. Anything else that you saw from the beat writers or anything that you wanted to touch base on? before we move on to the meeting with the media?
Right. No. Not anything that the beat writer said. That's always cool, getting their perspective of everything. Obviously, because we're not in there, that's our eyes inside. And especially Justin Rogers and the Pride of Detroit people that we know and respect. And, we can appreciate what they're saying, a little more than just, hearing that from anybody. So, yes, that's cool, getting that intel and everything. But I think more so, what Dan Campbell said and what the players said when they met.
Okay.
So if we want to skip on to that.
Yeah, go ahead. You tell me. We're gonna start with Dan Campbell first. So, what did you latch on that he said, or what stood out to you?
It's just the Jameson Williams stuff. I mean, I think almost exactly what you had said before. Like, he's adding different aspects to his game. They're really able to expand everything, and the hype train is just full steam ahead. Johnny Morton had already put that out there, and they're expecting a breakout season, and that's all you're hearing is just positive things about JMO, positive things about JMO. Jameson himself, the things that he said when he met with the media, that was really encouraging, made me feel, says JMO said he's entering year 4 now. He said becoming a vet, moving over from the rookie stage. So he's acknowledging that, in these years past, he still kind of felt like a rookie or still felt like he was kind of learning the rope. And now he's ready to play more football and be more consistent. He said he's the same person. He sees a lot of things differently, though. So, just that short interview, he did seem more mature. It seemed like he had a better grasp on everything. I'm just hoping and praying for a full training camp and a full season ahead for him to see, what he's got.
Yeah, the first thing that stood out to me is the maturity. And he's a guy that likes to have fun. He was still joking with the media, but he seemed like a different player as far as like just talking to the media, and I latched on to the leader thing too, and just couple that with what Campbell and Morton have said about him. It's real. This is a real thing that you're going to see this year, and I hope, just like you just said, that he stays healthy because I want to see this player. I want to see all these tools coming together. It's been a slow build with JMO, it feels like. The first year he's injured, second year suspension. Last year was better. He did 1,000-yard season, but then there was a couple like weeks that he just kind of disappeared from the offense. Whether that's game plan or him just not creating opportunities, I'm hoping that he turns this into, you have to stop JMO. Like I have to. You always had to game plan for his speed, but I want to have them to have to game plan for the player as a whole. That's what I want to see. And I want to see consistent targets going his way. And if they do that, Johnny Morton's going to be able to unlock something in this offense that maybe Ben Johnson did not have the opportunity to unlock. You got a more mature player, a stronger player. So I'm on board with you. I know that, everyone's kind of seeing the same thing. We're all hoping we see this, and it's pretty exciting.
Right. No, that's a good point. It's like it's the same guy, but he's a different guy. He's a more mature. He's a better, improved version. I mean, let's say that the hype is, they really are going to try to get him more involved. He really is more mature. He really is a little bit stronger. Do you think that results in more yards for Jameson Williams or Amon-Ra?
Well, I think both. Why can't both be
well,
true?
Right. Because they're going to have to worry about him.
Why can't both be true? And I mean, this offense, can you imagine it be even more explosive? You still got Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs you got to find, and then not to mention Tim Patrick. You got so many options. You could unlock those touches go somewhere, but if we get more first downs or more yards, that does open up more, more opportunities for Amon-Ra, for Sam Laporta in the red zone. All these things happen if JMO, it doesn't have to be an either or situation. I would love to see him just unlock the rest of this offense. It would be amazing. DJ Reed and Jack Campbell talked, both mentioned Ennis Rakestraw, which I found interesting. Even Jack Campbell straight out mentioned him as someone that's been working hard. I know we just mentioned in the practice, maybe not exactly how they wanted it to go, but the fact that they're mentioning him without being prompted to tells me that they've noticed something with this guy. And if we get another reserve corner uh, that's top of the line, that would be great for this team because you're going to have to go to your third, fourth string corner. It happens every year across the league, and especially with the Lions.
Right. And that's somebody that we saw during training camp that kind of stood out last year. You know, Raystar was doing a good job. He battled those injuries and everything like that. So, yes. No, I felt the same way. I picked up on that too. DJ Reed loves DB room.
Yeah.
Says the whole room was full of dogs. He shouted out a lot of them, but, he did acknowledge that he's there to provide veteran leadership to the room. He also talked about the city of Detroit. And that's always awesome to me when the newcomers come along and they talk about the city. They talk about, how they've been embraced and their perspective and everything like that, because there is still, some people still have a feeling about Detroit or a perception or whatever that's not true. And then when these players get here, they're like, oh, okay, no, this place is awesome. So I like when they reiterate that.
Yes, especially when it comes to sports. I don't think you could describe Detroit area for sports. You cannot describe the feeling of the city when it comes to like us embracing our teams, embracing our players. It is like personal for all of us, and that's why we have such a strong feeling when one of them retires, like Frank. He's like our friend, and like not only is he a good player, what it means to the team and everything like that, but it feels like, oh man, I want Frank to be happy or whatever, but I also missing my friend on the team. I get it. It's just it's a pretty awesome feeling when you see these newcomers come in and realize that, and then they're going to get their first home game in Ford Field, and then they're really going to get the feeling of it, and we make a playoff run, then it becomes even more real, and you start feeling that energy. It's pretty amazing. Before we get over to Dan Campbell, I know we're going to start with him, but you wanted to get to JMO, and I thought that was a great place to start off. So Jared Goff talked, didn't really talk to anything eventful. But a question I have for you, Jacob, they asked Jared Goff, what were you working on in the offseason? And he gave the answer as like minute stuff that you would find boring. But if you're Jared Goff's coach, Mike Brunell, what would you want Jared Goff to work on? Is there anything in particular that you would have wanted him to work on? Now you can't gift him Michael Vick speed, so that's not an answer.
But you can work on your mobility.
Yeah. Okay. Is that what you would do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why is he not training? Why is he not hitting the weight room, training legs and running sprints and trying to move around?
I like the out route on the sideline because I think he could throw that better. So I hope he worked on that. I thought last year he was definitely more mobile last year than the year before, but his ability to fill out the pocket I thought was better. You're going to be really disappointed if you think he's going to get anything where he's going to be breaking runs and turning into Kyler Murray. That's not going to happen. But yes, moving around, extending plays a little bit, that can happen. And I would like to see him maybe work on throwing the run and stuff like that. I could see that being beneficial for the Lions.
Do you know what Jared Goff's career long run is?
I don't. I heard your keyboard clicking. Did you just?
I just thought of it, and I was like, I've got to look because I was thinking in my head. If you had a guess, if you had a guess,
16 yards,
12 yards.
Okay, I overestimated. Was that the first down run versus Arizona, or was it for that with the Rams?
This was in 2019 against the Jets. So this was a Rams play.
Okay, all right. Quiz of the day. All right. Dan Campbell also met with the media. He's always fun to listen to. He just talked about someone asked him about the schedule, and he's like, "I love it."
Yeah, right.
I love it. You would not expect anything else, but love it. It's going to scar us up, and we'll be ready for the postseason. And I agree with that. Like if you could make it through that gauntlet, you're going to be well versed for the playoffs. You're going to be well ready.
Yeah, no weeks off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to continuously just keep bringing it which you typically do have to do in an NFL schedule, but I mean, especially when you look at the big teams that we're playing this year, you week in, week out, you have to bring it.
Yep. I also thought it was funny that he was like, all the the early thing that they're dealing with like the Hall of Fame game. There's like he said the off season started a week later, so there's like 1 week less of off season. The schedule, he's like, it's perfect. And I just think that he's just one of those guys that's just like, we're gonna look at the positive side. What's it gonna be? How's this gonna benefit us? It'll be, the schedule's hard. Okay, so what? We'll just prove early in the season that we belong. We'll be ready to play. And we got an extra Hall of Fame game. Yeah, the suckers throws our schedule off. Nope, the rookies get to play an extra game, and they're gonna get extra reps that'll be valuable at some point during the season. Hendon Hooker's gonna get more reps, running this offense. Kyle Allen, get more reps running this offense.
Yeah, it's a sneaky. We already talked about that a little bit, but quarterback 2 situation there.
Yep. Yeah, I really want to see. I can't wait. Didn't seem like Hendon did. They didn't show too much OTAs from like Hendon or Kyle. I know that Kyle threw an interception. It looks like to Rocky Sin. At some point, it looked like in the the videos that they put out. Didn't hear anything about Hendon. Even the beat writers didn't say anything about Hendon.
Yeah, nothing at all. So,
yep. All right. So, I think it's time to move on to the last segment that we got here. It's a listener mailbag question. It was from Throw Jimmy on Reddit. So we have a Reddit page. We have a mailbag question area. So if you want to throw in a question there, this is a very good question. I told him I'd get it on this episode. So if you want to throw a question in there, I'll definitely see it. You want to hit us up on Twitter. I can't promise we're going to get every question on there if we get a large influx. But if you got a question and you want to hear a response, we definitely want to throw this out there. So Throw Jimmy from Reddit says, what teams do y'all believe are roadblocks to play in the Super Bowl? Besides the obvious Philly and the Commanders, for my 2 cents, it's the Rams. Great coaching, nice young defense, weapons all over the place on offense, and a guy that's decent at coming from behind at center. Talking about Matt Stafford. What do you think? So, Jacob, let's start with
I like how you had to reiterate that he was talking about Matthew Stafford as if we didn't know.
I know.
No, we're not familiar with that guy around here.
Yeah.
What was his name again?
I wanted to say his name one more time.
Stafford.
Stafford. Matthew Stafford. So, NFC. Who do you think, besides Philly and the Commanders, and then, he mentioned the Rams, are there any other teams?
I think that's a really good choice, too, the Rams. I mean, I would put them up there, definitely. But, I've got 2 teams. One that I think, is more concerned than the other one. But, I think possibly San Fran again. It was a long season for them last year, but McCaffrey, is fully healthy now. They were still in the top half of the league without him last year. And they did go defense heavy in the draft. Their defense, was kind of holding them back last year. So they've overhauled the defense. If the defense improves, McCaffrey comes back and the offense explodes again, then suddenly they're right back to being a dangerous team. Mm-hmm. So that was the first team I had on there.
Okay. I'll let you do your second team, but I just want to agree that San Fran's on my list too.
Okay.
And the only thing I'm going to add, the other thing on the defense, they brought Robert Saleh back. So he's their defensive coordinator. So solid defensive coordinator. They drafted defense. You're going to expect them to play defense. They were top 10 offense last year with McCaffrey out. They're going to add McCaffrey in now. I know they lost Debo, so there's some question marks there. But, you got Kyle Shanahan, who's a genius on offense. So
this may be a controversial take, but I think they're better without Debo.
You do?
Right.
All right.
I mean, they got the rookie wide receiver who was really kind of coming into it. Is it Ricky Pearsall?
Yeah.
They've still got Ayuk. Ayuk was injured, right? George Kittle, out there. I mean, I just feel like Debo was constantly a distraction, right? Or that was constantly in the news. Debo wants the ball more. Debo wants this. Debo wants that. Then there's games where Debo's getting, 8 to 10 targets or touches and just not doing anything with it.
Mm-hmm. Who's your second team?
The second team, I think, is Tampa Bay. They got the wide receiver Ekbuka in round 1. They drafted a couple corners in the next few rounds. They signed Hassan Reddick. And this is a perennial playoff team. 5 years in a row, they've been in the playoffs. And on top of all that, their improvements and everything, but we had 2 losses last year, and one of those was to Tampa Bay, and that was week 2 when we were pretty much fully healthy. I mean, I think we shot ourselves in the foot a lot in that game. It was a very winnable game for us, but I mean, they got the job done and they were able to beat us, So we've also got that kind of rivalry going with the Buccaneers right now. So, I think that's a tough matchup as well.
Yeah, we play them on Monday night this year. See, San Francisco's not on our schedule, so if we saw them, it'd be playoffs. But Tampa Bay, we will see in the regular season. Their offense got better, which is scary because their receivers are going to be tough. You mentioned Emeka Buga, but they, Godwin and Evans, they got, Irving in the backfield, and you got Baker, right? So, and then the Todd Bowles controlling that defense. Going to be a solid defense. I don't know how, they're going to be respectable defense at the very least, if not good. So we'll see how it goes, but Tampa Bay was on my list too. So you and I matched on that.
Do you have somebody else?
Nope, those are just the 2 teams I had. You got someone else?
No, those are the 2.
Yeah, that's all I had. So I list 3 AFC teams. Let's not, this would only get in the way in the Super Bowl, but my 3 AFC teams, and your obvious ones are like Buffalo, Kansas City, the Baltimore. I didn't put those guys on there. The 2 that I have that I think are like kind of more dark horse candidates are the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
If Bo Nix matures, that defense was really good last year.
Right.
And if Bo Nix makes, a sophomore jump here, that they could be really good. And then the LA Chargers, if you heard of them, they used to be in San Diego. The LA Chargers with our boy Harbaugh, they could be good too.
Yes. We talked about that. I root for the Chargers, but not not they're playing us. If it's a Super Bowl with the Chargers and Lions, death to San Diego, burn them to the ground.
You said San Diego, brother. And
it was a joke, Jason.
Okay. I'm sorry. Couldn't
remember. It's not funny when I have to go back and explain it. Just get the sarcasm.
Okay, I gotcha.
My God.
Anybody? Did you pick any AFC teams, or did you just?
No, because I just took the question as like who's stopping us from getting to the Super Bowl, not who we have to worry about once we get there.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go into depth with those teams. But before we wrap up, is there anything before I wrap up with anything? Is there anything that I missed that we wanted to talk about or anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I will mention that a new podcast come out. A question just came in with chat, so we'll get to that in a second. But a new Lions podcast come out. It's called Passing Time. They reached out to us on Twitter. I had a chance to listen to their newest episode. They're new, and I will tell you the hardest thing is to get started. So I commend them for getting started and getting going. I enjoyed listening to their podcast. They reached out to me, asked for feedback, which I, gave them in a DM. So if you are looking for another Lions podcast to kind of, to fulfill your day on your long walks with a dog or travel or whatever, it's called Passing Time. Give them a shout, give them a look, see what you think. Maybe they'll speak to you. But I told my, when we were young, and we still are young, right, Jacob? We've only been doing this for a year, right? But Jeremy Reisman threw us a big bone when we were young, and I'd like to somehow return the favor on that. So if you get a chance, it's called Passing Time. Check them out and see what you think. Let's hit this question real quick.
It's a good question.
Vin asked, this just dropped into the chat, so we haven't any time to study or think about it, so I'm going to just drop it to you right now, Jacob. Any chance we could trade for Henderson with the money that is now freed up with Frank Ragnow retiring?
That's wishful thinking. I mean, that would be cool, right? You start thinking about pairing up Henderson with Hutchinson. Maybe now it's a little more realistic than it was before, but I don't have it in front of me right now. I know you said it earlier. How much was Frank due, or how much should we save from Frank?
$15 million, but we're probably with the cap savings because we're gonna have dead cap money. It's gonna be about $9 million.
Yeah, that's not Trey Hendrickson money.
No.
If we're getting Trey Hendrickson, that would be on like a 1 year thing that he is not going to go for. unless the Bengals have made him so angry that he's willing just to sign a short-term thing or whatever, and I don't think that's the case. But we can dream, and now this makes a little more.
DJ Reader calls up his boy Troy and said, "Hey, just play the 1 year with us, and you'll get banked next year." That's what he says.
Yeah, right. No. CJ Gardner-Johnson.
No, we can't afford to trade off draft picks. We cannot afford to trade off the draft capital that's going to take to get Trey Hendrickson to say, "Hey, come here." I'd love to see him opposite of Hutch. That would be amazing. However, it's not in the cards. I just don't see that happening. Would it be amazing to watch for a season? Yes, but what it would cost us in the future, not really willing to part with the draft capital. And then the fact that we'd have to pay money, so then we're gonna lose, Branch, Gibbs, Laporte, or somewhere along that line. You're just not gonna be able to afford them. Because of the money that, we want to carry this cap space that we have this year forward so we can afford to pay those guys. Hutch's extension hasn't happened yet, so we don't even know, we have that's going to eat up a lot of this cap space that we have right now.
Yeah, if it was just a matter like in free agency where if it was just the money, I mean, maybe you could get more creative and start thinking of ways that you can make that work, but it's not.
No, that's it. It's draft capital and money, and that's just not where this team is at right now. But I'm also not in the mindset of like we should go all in. Like there are people out there that feel like the Lions windows now. You need to do whatever you can. Screw the future because you don't know when you're going to win. Look at the Rams. People thought the Rams did that. They traded away Goff. They traded away draft picks. They get Stafford, Stafford, they win the Super Bowl. Yes, they have a bad year the following year. Some of that's due to injuries. But now you and I were just talking about how the Rams are, a Super Bowl contender or can get in the Lions' way at least. So, I mean, you could look at it that way. And, if you do, that's fine. I don't look at it this way. I want to keep this thing going. I want to keep this thing consistent and have as many chances to be in the Super Bowl window, because last year we had a really good chance and injuries derailed it. That could happen with any of the players. And so I just like to be consistently good so that we have consistently can get to the playoffs, get the tournament, and then move on. But that's me. I think you feel the same way, Jacob.
We've got the right coaching staff and we've been drafting really well.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the recipe for success right now, and that's kind of what the Rams have been doing. Right? The Rams have really good coaching. They do really good in the draft. They're smart with their free agents. That's how they're able to come back so quick.
Right. Amazingly, they were able to do it without first round picks too. I mean, they were drafting better late. And so they, SM picks or whatever worked out well for them. But I would say that I don't know, especially with the way Brad Holmes deals with later in the draft, he just trades, 3 third-round picks for another third-round pick, right? So we need to have some early picks in there, but
yeah,
we'll see. That habit would probably change if we didn't have a first-rounder. But Vin, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Hope that sufficed for an answer for you. All right. So, all right. Frank retired, but Tigers are just creaming the White Sox, 13-1 or whatever. So let's go out with good sports vibes.
Hey, I got a Honolulu Blitz for you. Don't forget that.
Oh man, we're doing that. All right, let's do it.
It's it's a quicker version. It's not like it was before. So anybody that's been listening, long term since the beginning, we last year did this Honolulu Blitz, where we ask each other questions. It's just fun. There's some trivia. There's some other things involved too. So we're gonna start doing that. Maybe not every week, but we're gonna be mixing this back in too because this is something fun to do.
All right.
So this week I just have some questions for Jason, and it's a special category, Jason. You're gonna like this one. I've got 10 rounds of this. It's real quick. It won't take very long here, but all it is I'm going to give you 2 players, and I want you to name who played more games as a Detroit Lion.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Here we go. First round. Dominic Raiola or Jeff Backus?
And it's just as a Lion, right?
Just as a Lion. So not in their NFL career. This is just games that they suited up, were active. And this is according to Pro Football Reference. So if anything is inaccurate, you can blame them.
Okay. I'm going to go with Backus.
So Jeff Backus played 191 games. Dominic Raiola played 219.
Ooh. All right.
So Raiola actually is the third most games as a Lion all time.
All right.
All right, next up, Matthew Stafford or Barry Sanders?
Oh, man. 9-2. I'm going to go Stafford on this one.
That is correct. Stafford played 165 games. Barry Sanders 153.
Okay.
All right. A punter question for you now. Sam Martin or Nick Harris?
For the Lions, I'm going to go Nick Harris.
That's correct. Nick Harris 136. Sam Martin 106.
Okay.
They both were long-term Lions punters, though. I think 8 to 10 years for each of them. So
I know. What is with the Lions in the kicking game? It's like we keep our punters forever. Jake Bates is probably going to be here when my kids are having kids, just because we had the hand. Jason Hanson.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Don't jinx that.
Yeah.
All right. You're 2-1 right now. Let's see.
All right.
Dante Culpepper or Andre Ware?
Wow. Now, is this games where they were I wonder if it's active or just.
I believe they had to actually play a snap in order to count as a game played.
I'm going Culpepper then.
So Culpepper played in 13 games. Andre Ware played in 14.
Oh my God!
I had to throw that one in there just because it was so close. But I thought that was a good one.
Former first-round pick Andre Ware played 14 games. Yep.
Right. And Dante Culpepper at the very end of his career. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a couple of them that are that close.
Yes.
All right. Calvin Johnson or Johnny Morton?
I'm going to say Johnny Morton.
So Morton was 126. Calvin Johnson 135.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Right? Golden Tate or Theo Riddick?
Man. Gosh. I feel like it's Theo Riddick. I'm going to say Theo Riddick.
That's correct. So Theo Riddick was 84 games. Golden Tate played in 71.
Okay.
All right. Nate Burleson or Eric Ebron?
I want to forget Eric Ebron was even on this team.
Yeah, right.
So I want to say, and Nate was so likable. I'm going to say Nate just because of that factor.
It felt like Nate, probably because he made more of an impact, but Nate played in 45 games and Ebron was 56.
Oh, yeah.
All right. This is a fun one. Adrian Peterson or LeGarrette Blount?
Wow. Patricia loved Peterson. I'm going with Peterson on this one.
This one is a push. I just wanted to hear your perspective. They both played in 16 games.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
I just thought that was a good one. It was interesting. It was the same number. All right. You got 2 more here. Aiden Hutchinson, as it stands right now, or Kyle Vanden Bosch?
I'm going to say Vanden Bosch because of Hutchinson's injury. Is that close?
Vanden Bosch played in 43 games, and Hutchinson, as it stays right now, is at 39.
Yeah, so if he played all last year, injury was the difference.
All right, last one for you. Chris Spielman or Corey Schlesinger?
I feel like it's Corey Schlesinger.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
So Schlesinger was 181 games. Spielman played in 124.
Okay. Yeah.
So you went 6-4. Not bad.
Okay. Not bad. Yeah.
Just something I thought of one day, and I was like, I think that would be fun. Something that wouldn't take too long, but something fun to do.
No, that's awesome, and that's impossible to prepare for too.
Right. Unless you have the list right there.
Exactly. No, I wasn't going cheap, but no, that's a fun game. So you got that to look forward to. It'll be my turn to do that. We
Real
won't be
quick,
doing
hang
it.
on. Let me just
Well,
do something else. Can
oh.
you? So anyone that I didn't mention, can you think of somebody who you think would be like top 10 or top 20 in games played?
For the Lions,
Right.
Herman Moore.
Herman Moore. He's not top 20.
Okay, are you
Let me
talking?
see
Is
where
this
it's at.
okay? Let's see here. Man, yeah, jeez, so many guys in and out.
I don't see Herman on here. So this may be Herman Weaver, Herman Hunter. No Herman Moore on this list. So he belongs on here somewhere.
Yeah, I don't trust your list now.
You can fact check all of these then.
Yeah, no, I'm just messing with you. I mean, what so the top 10? Are we
Number one should be obvious. You've already kind of mentioned him.
Who did I mention? I don't even know. Should be obvious.
Not as sharp as you were when you weren't working remote.
No, exactly.
Sitting on your butt all day.
Yeah, I know. My mind's mush, man. I'm
number one. So number one on the list is Jason Hansen.
Okay, yes. Is Eddie Murray in there? Eddie Murray's got to be up there.
He's not in the top 20 that I have.
Really? No, he was a kicker forever. That's shocking.
Jason Hansen, number one. Don Mulbach, number two. Long snapper. And then Raiola was number three.
Yeah, okay.
Robert Porsche is on here. Dick LeBeau.
Is Lomas on there?
Lomas. Yep, Lomas is right behind Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
Larry Hand, Alex Karras. Kelvin Pritchett.
Yep. Linebacker.
Pritchett played for 13 seasons, it says.
Wow.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, good game. We won't play this next week because our buddy Jeremy Reisman's going to be on next week. Talking the NFL rulebook, we got a fun show. Like, you might hear rulebook and think this is going to be, boring. Jeremy loves the rulebook. We have like 3 different segments. I think it's going to be an actual really fun show. So I encourage you to tune in next week. And yeah, we get to hang out with Jeremy for another hour or so. So I'm looking forward to that.
Right.
Anything else before we take off here?
No, man, I'm good.
All right. Well, it's good seeing your face. This is where we're going to primarily see each other until we get our kids together at some point this summer. But yeah, miss working with you. But I'm glad that we got this time together.
For sure. At least we'll have once a week.
Yeah, exactly. Until we get the season, that is twice a week. Then we'll really get tired of each other. All right. For that guy over there, Jacob, I'm Jason. Let's go Lions. Boom.